Welcome to the second part of service, where I will describe how I painted this painting. Portrait of Princess Drahomíra, who lived in the 10th century. In the last part I described my work on underdrawing and underpainting. Today I will show you how I painted the background and surrounding, the stone wall and the fallen leaves. Someone might wonder why my painting is upside down. It's practical for several reasons. I can comfortably reach the higher places in the painting, and it's also better to look at each part from several angles. So sometimes put the painting upside down and sometimes lie it on the tent. It's way easier to find mistakes. I didn't use any underpainting for the wall, just a crayon underdrawing and continued with oil paint. Most often I use the proven procedure. It's first pour the dark and medium shades and finally whites. The first strokes emphasize what I applied with the crayon, as it will be very easy to lose the drawn lines under the brush strokes. In a few shots you can see the layout of the colors on the palette. I'm definitely not a fan of reduced scale, like mixing 3 colors plus white. On the contrary, I like to use a diverse range of pigments, including 2 types of black, because each color has a different translucency, density or drying time. If you want, I can talk about it in one of next videos. I would even use similar colors for the skin color, but in different ratio. This is already one of the shots where I also use white, or colors that contain white, such as Neapolitan yellow. In fact, it's not a true Neapolitan yellow, but a non-poisonous imitation of it. In this shot, I also use a painter's spatula, a tool that many painters use too much, even for structures that are not very suitable. However, it seems absolutely ideal for a stone wall, because it's a flat structure. A stone wall has the huge advantage that it can be painted in small sections if I don't have a lot of time that day. I always start a new painting when the surrounding painting has struggled dried. I often like to paint alla prima, that is, in a single layer of oil painting. But in this case, I returned to painting in the second layer. Firstly, to support the structure, but also to suppress excessive contrast, because I don't want the background to be more contrasting than the foreground. The next part I painted was the ground with fallen leaves. Those are already the places which acrylic underpainting, which I isolated with damar varnished, diluted 1:1 with turpentine oil. But I do not use any thinners or oils during painting. For the ground with fallen leaves, the procedure where I applied the base over the underpainting with a white brush. It's almost a glaze, without any thinner. It was best process for me. I started painting into this wet base, first the dark and medium shades and finally the whites. I use a small palette here because I was painting a smaller section that day. These structures are very difficult to navigate. I personally find it helpful to look in the structure like leaf, like faces and zoomorphic shapes. Here you can see another part where I first applied the glaze again and painted into it. I definitely didn't want the leaves to be too elaborate, similar to the stones in the background. I didn't want them to overpower the figure, so I chose this form of finishing, where I always try to express the most important things in each leaf and in the units. In this part of painting I used mostly natural brushes. They leave more strong brush strokes. I used procedure invented by Dutch painters, Dutch masters. It's first a background and after foreground. I proceed from the back parts of the composition to the front ones. So in the next episode I will show you how I painted the clothes, or it could be called drapery. Thank you for watching. Likes, comments, following, and below the video as always you can find links to my website, Instagram, Facebook and other social networks. Thank you for following there as well. Have a nice day and see you in the next videos.